And welcome to Straight Up with Marc Patrone. Appreciate you tuning in, my friends. I am your host. Well, Prime Minister Mark Carney is getting tired of being asked about building energy pipelines, insisting his government is on it. And at an event Thursday at the Canadian Club in Toronto, he dismissed a question about pipelines as, quote, boring. In a series of incoherent starts and stops, Carney appeared exasperated, having to deal with the issue. Let's listen.
One of my questions was, is this pipeline going to come?
So boring.
It's not actually.
It is. It is because don't worry, we're on it. We're on it.
And
but there is this whole world.
Party?
Okay, hands up. Who's working on the pipeline in this room?
Erika Barootes is going to be joining us to deal with that one a little later on in the segment. But as you heard there, I mean, in his view, at least he said it during that interview, that he thinks tech jobs will have a much bigger impact on the economy, on productivity than an energy pipeline. What he did not mention, or maybe didn't know, is that energy is the single most critical part of any rollout of intelligence infrastructure, including AI data centers. Maybe he finds that boring too, but it takes a huge amount of energy to power these projects. The likes of Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Oracle, and Meta together recently signed contracts for 50 gigawatts of new power by 2030, more than the entire installed capacity of the country of Spain. So increased oil production is already one of the fastest and cheapest types of power to power that rollout. And Canada has plenty of it. What we don't have, sadly, is the infrastructure to fully exploit those resources. Again, maybe that's too boring for the Prime Minister to consider. Meantime, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, whom Carney says is on line one, whatever that means, says a deal with the feds is a work in progress. Let's listen.
Are you becoming less optimistic about getting a new pipeline deal done in light of the recent budget?
I'm still working with the federal government to see if we can come up with a memorandum of understanding so that we can get a bitumen pipeline to Asian markets, as well as the Pathways project, as well as remove some of the bad laws that will allow for that investment to occur. So I hope to have more to say next week before Grey Cup.
Smith is looking for a major pipeline agreement with the feds to fast track a new oil pipeline to the northern BC coast. He may get somewhat less than that. We'll have to see. There is still some fallout to be seen from the defection of former Conservative Chris d'Entremont, who joined the Liberals just last week. D'Entremont says he was encouraged to make the jump after meeting with Prime Minister Carney, but says getting yelled at by Conservative Andrew Scheer sealed the deal. Let's listen.
This has been a thought for a long time, basically from the election, hearing from longtime supporters that wouldn't support me anymore because of the leadership style of the Conservative Party. So, I've been thinking about it a lot. And, I think people saw that I wasn't being utilized within my party and they were reaching out. And when I had that meeting with the Prime Minister, because I really hadn't had the opportunity to meet Mr. Carney before, that did help a lot in making it clearer of what I wanted to do. But I tell you, what really what sealed the deal is when I got yelled at when this became part of the news on Tuesday.
He doesn't like getting yelled at. Well, it was only last April during the election campaign that d'Entremont was very critical of the Liberals' election platform. And there you go. He was very much in favor of the Conservative one. So obviously something happened. Anyway, for all the criticism that Pierre Poilievre has been under since d'Entremont's departure, a new poll suggests the party is going to do well or would do better with him at the helm than other prominent Conservatives. The survey looked at how the party would perform with different leaders in a hypothetical election. Poilievre was the top choice, defeating former Prime Minister Harper, Doug Ford, Jason Kenney, and Caroline Mulroney.
I want to take a minute to thank today's sponsor, which is MaKami College. So MaKami College has an applied politics and public affairs program. It's a 2-year evening online program available across Canada. Students have the opportunity to learn to run political campaigns, organize grassroots movements, and push policy in the right direction. Students will also have hands-on placements in their community or with the party they believe in. So when they graduate, they have real job-ready experience. Applicants only need a high school diploma or homeschooling equivalent equivalent to apply. Intake starts in September and January. And folks, we are very excited to announce that anyone who applies and is successful in enrollment will get a $500 scholarship from Juno News. So apply using our link. It's in the description. You can go to candicemalcolm.com/MaKami. That's MaKami. And if you apply through that link and you're successful, you get a $500 Juno News scholarship. You know, I went to the University of Alberta and studied political science. And the thing you realize when you're doing a university degree is that it doesn't lead you to a job. And so for me, after 3 years of being a political science student, I looked around and realized I had no job skills. I had never worked in politics. Everything was theoretical. It was all in the classroom. And I had to start working on political campaigns just to get my foot in the door. The hard thing about politics is that you need experience to get a job, but jobs require experience. And so doing something like this, I mean, the fact that you can do it online, the fact that you can do it on the evening is really helpful. If you're interested in politics and you're watching the show, I presume you are. This is something that you really might want to consider, or hey, maybe one of your adult children might be interested in doing something like this. So again, check out this link at candicemalcolm.com/MaKami.
Our guest today is Erika Barootes. She's an expert in politics and public affairs. Erika, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, so you heard this, frankly, rather odd clip from the Prime Minister who was asked about the pipeline. Clearly, there's an element of exasperation here. You know, he stumbled around wondering how to respond, and finally he came up with, well, we got this. And it doesn't inspire a whole lot of confidence. I mean, if you're in the energy sector, if you're looking for a way to move Canada forward on this file, that answer does not exactly inspire a whole lot of confidence, does it?
It doesn't inspire confidence. It also makes him look quite silly. I mean, to say that one of the leading economic drivers of our country and the potential to be the superpower that he campaigned on is boring and not something this room wants to talk about, seems really out of touch, but it sends even a greater message to, Western Canada, where we've been talking about energy nonstop for over the last decade. And I think there was a lot of hope that under Carney that might be heard, but it didn't really seem after that comment that he's been listening to what's been said and the message about our energy sector that's been conveyed time and time again.
Yeah, he said, well, we've got this. And then he said something cryptic like, well, there'll be some kind of announcement on it. So that tells me that it may not be the announcement that Danielle Smith and many other Canadians want to hear. What do you think?
Yeah, he definitely started off, well, it's boring. Well, just kidding, like, we've got this. And then it was like, well, we got something like this. So I don't know. I mean, until he says we're not building a pipeline, I will be hopeful, because I do think that looking at the budget that was tabled last week, the amount of revenue that they need to bring in to make this even at all sustainable, the private investment that they've kind of doubled down on without creating an environment that is friendly to the private sector. He's got a lot of work to do to be able to even make this $78 billion deficit work. So I'll hold my breath until we hear no. But I think you're going to continue to see some of the premiers, as we saw Saskatchewan, Ontario, and Alberta say, we're going to build a pipeline. So if he doesn't want it, he can get out of the way.
Yeah, I think the fact that he called it boring suggests to me that he's tired of answering the question about pipelines. He's tired of being asked about it everywhere he goes, almost. He gets asked his questions about, when are we going to have a pipeline and when are you going to roll this out? And he says, I've had enough, throws up his hands and doesn't want to hear about it anymore. But maybe people need to continue asking him until we get some kind of an announcement, if that's what it takes. The other part of this that troubles me a little bit is that he seems to suggest that, well, we're going to do a lot better in terms of our productivity if we invest heavily in the rollout of these AI networks and data entry, data collection networks, as if one is mutually exclusive to the other. I mean, he didn't seem to mention that energy is like the most important part of any rollout of intelligence infrastructure, including AI centers. And, it makes me wonder if he's aware of that. And if he is aware of it, why wouldn't he see the two working in tandem rather than saying, well, this one is better than that one?
Yeah, it's actually surprising. I mean, I thought he was smarter than Trudeau, but it seems to me that maybe he doesn't understand how various industries besides the finance sector works, because to be able to have that capacity on a grid system requires oil and gas. It requires other sources of electricity, and it's not going to run on wind and solar. But if you're trying to get anything moving in the AI space, I mean, one of the biggest places that uses AI is our natural resources or our energy sector. And so it seemed, again, I hate saying out of touch because he hasn't even been there long enough to be out of touch, but apparently he's making up for lost time. That it's really seeming like he doesn't realize that if we're going to be this energy superpower, which he campaigned on, that you can't only be one resource. And it seems to me like he's really focused on the big sexy topic of AI and not thinking about the impact it has and the trickle down effect to industry and consumers.
Yeah, it just seems that any promises that he has made in that regard, and when it comes to pipelines and building out the resource sector, is always around this sense of trepidation. Like he's doing it almost against his will.
Hmm.
Like I'll get around to it. This is boring. We're on this. Leave me alone. You know what I'm saying? Like
Hmm.
that's why I'm suggesting that there's a real lack of confidence. I mean, if I was in Alberta and I was looking for some kind of signal, I wouldn't see it here. So what do you suppose the Brain Trust is thinking now in Alberta? Like they talk about Danielle Smith and so forth, the premier. I mean, she said that they're working on this project with the feds. Well, this has been going on for a long time.
Hmm.
There's this sense that there will be some trade-offs in terms of commitments on the net zero stuff and carbon capture. Um, is it possible that this is going to be completely underwhelming when we finally get this announcement, whenever it happens?
Well, should we not get an announcement, I don't think the dial of Alberta, the message that they've been sending is going to change. It will be actually probably even more relentless. Now, I think if there's no project to come forward, they've talked about natural gas being probably the first most feasible, as it's kind of from the Liberals recognized as the most appealing fossil fuel. And so, I don't think Danielle Smith's message is going to change to Ottawa. We need more energy. We need more, traditional energy, being oil and gas. And there's multiple places, either south, north, or west, north, or east, that we can get our resources to market. And so I think that there is a big expectation. They keep batting around buy Grey Cup, which is very Canadian of us. And I do hope that there is a pipeline. Now, the odd thing through all of this is the one project that looks to be the most feasible would be Keystone. And going now, relying after this whole Elbows Up campaign, relying on the United States for to get our pipeline and our energy to market. So, I mean, I think that would hurt Carney a lot. But as an Alberta girl, I'm all for getting our energy sector out and on boats from any direction we can get.
Yeah, I mean, Keystone was canceled by the Americans, right? I think it was day one of Joe Biden's administration.
Hmm.
They said, oh, no, we're not going there. Of course, there was that whole kabuki theater during the Obama administration in which it went back and forth between the Harper government at the time and Obama, and he just kind of kept putting it off, and then it happened, and then it had the plug pulled out of it by Biden. So it'll be interesting to see, because I think Trump is all in on this, right? He's all about drill baby drill. So where is the holdup here in terms of Keystone? Is it from our side now?
From my understanding, yes. Like the challenge was the direction in Keystone. That has all been reassessed. It's essentially for Carney and Trump to come to an agreement. Now, again, I don't think that maybe the stipulations that Carney is going to put on the private sector companies and the mandates he's going to try and give to the premiers on, like you talked about, net zero, carbon capture, et cetera, will be the same on that he would give to President Trump. But again, I'm drill baby drill too. So wherever we can go, I just think that if we're truly going to be this independent economy, we need to look to our own borders, not just the South. Like that wouldn't be a checkbox that shows the sustainability and longevity of our own economy to be independent from the U.S. However, I'll take the revenue where we can we can get it. The one thing that I don't think Mark Carney understands is actually all of the clean tech, clean energy regulations, carbon capture, additional projects that Alberta already puts in place which myth busts a lot of his criticism for this industry. And I don't know if it's him or his caucus, but there's somewhere along this line that's stopping these projects, even though they really could use the Constitution to their benefit and force something or change Bill C-46, the tanker ban. They have that within their power. I think that when it comes back to your question of who's stopping all of this, the buck is stopping in Ottawa. And I guess the rest of the premiers and everyone that can tell them to keep moving forward will have to go about that if we don't hear something by Grey Cup.
How much pressure is Premier Smith under? I mean, is her political future now wrapped up in this agreement? Because, of course, she's also under pressure from the independence crowd. They're looking for, a referendum. And so she seems to be caught in the middle, right? There's a lot of pressures on her, among them to deal with the feds, which is, hard enough as it is, but then to also placate people at home who are, sick and tired of this back and forth that has gone nowhere and are thinking, we got like 1 foot out of Confederation. It will be a difficult time for her.
It is, but I don't think she's losing more sleep than Mark Carney is in navigating all of this. In every premier in Alberta, regardless of ideology, Rachel Notley even did it, was push Ottawa. It is politically beneficial to challenge Ottawa as an Alberta premier. And so I think she can continue to do that. I think she's given herself through her communication, as well as how strong she's pushed Ottawa, to give herself more runway, because she's proposed, I think, about 3 different opportunities for the federal government. And if they say no, I think, again, we might all end up with just Keystone, but I still think that would be a win for her and the province of Alberta. So she is in a little bit of a sticky situation, given that like if there's no pipeline, I think we'll see a little bit of a resurgence of the separation movement. But even then, I think Albertans across the board, regardless of if they're conservative or not, have actually appreciated, and polls suggest that, appreciate how hard she's been pushing for this industry. Because in Alberta, we know how environmentally sound our production is. And even with the removal of emissions cap, we can still guarantee the carbon capture that the Prime Minister is looking for.
Well, I guess the big get would be another pipeline to Tidewater, right? A shorter, like a Northern Gateway type of pipeline. Do you think that's a possibility? And to what degree will BC's ongoing intransigence on that file weigh in on all of this?
Yeah, I mean, I would love if that was the announcement to come. I'm not sure that is going to be what we'll see from this prime minister. I mean, he's been dancing, trying to secure a majority, et cetera. I think if we can hold that minority, there's better chance in his timeline, or in even the Alberta timeline until the next election, to be able to really push for that. So do I think 2025 is the year that we might get a pipeline announced? I'm not going to hold my breath. However, I do think that there is some runway to continue to advocate. And again, the power of the premiers and those first ministers coming together is something that Ottawa cannot ignore. And I think we're seeing more of that than ever.
How much frustration is there amongst Albertans as they look towards Eastern Canada and continue to see people who are, I want to say, impartial or don't care or don't get it, or even openly hostile, like you see amongst some of the politicians in Quebec towards, Alberta's aspirations? It's almost like they don't understand that so much of the transfer payments east, ends up coming and generated from the oil sector. Is that an ongoing issue, or have Albertans sort of thrown up their hands and say, we don't care anymore?
Oh, I definitely don't ever think we'll say we don't care, because it is very frustrating. I mean, you have facts and figures, and is a little bit rich for Quebec to say that when the equalization formula is very much in their favor and they're able to run balanced budgets, even though they're not actually, because of the subsidies that they're getting from other provinces. So it is very frustrating as an Albertan that you can say the same consistent message for a decade and it still not resonate, even when you're proving the environmental pushback, you're proving the economic feasibility of it, you're proving all of these things that, and the world's desire for more oil and gas, like it's not going to wind and solar. And so, again, I think that we are seeing, though, more of a band of that. And Ontario, I think, has actually started to really realize the need for a pipeline. And so Quebec, I think, will always have its unique case or its unique position in our country. But if Ontario can get on board and that's something we can look at, I truly believe we can get something eastbound.
Erika Barootes, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And that is it for this edition of my show. Appreciate you tuning in, my friends. We'll see you next time.